Hello there, it's Sarah from Paper Lovely. Thanks for joining me today. I've got part 2 of my 10 cards 1 kit using the Simon Says Stamp May 2018 card kit. If you missed the first 5 cards, make sure you check out the video that I posted yesterday. So we're jumping here into card number 6, and I've decided to do a little bit of watercoloring. So I've got my Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink, and I'm going to stamp out this teacup twice on some ADHESIVE hot press watercolor paper. So I did stamp and color this twice, but I only ended up using the second one that I had colored. So I went ahead and fast forwarded just for the sake of time, and I'm only going to leave in the coloring on the one that I actually used. If you don't want to watch the watercolor, go ahead and fast forward to around the 3-minute mark, and that will take you to the actual process of putting the card together. So here I've grabbed this blue polka dot patterns background paper, and I'm going to place that on top of one of the white card bases, and I've added some ATG all along the back of that so that I can cover the whole card front. And there you see I'm just lining it up. I was trying to get it as evenly spaced as I could, and then I went ahead and just trimmed the excess off both of the sides as well as the top. I am going to go ahead and add the sentiment above my watercolor teacup. So I went with "You Are Simply the Best." And I again went back to this Versamark onyx black ink in order to stamp that out. Now, once I got it stamped, it looked slightly uneven to me, so I trimmed a little bit off the side. And then I'm going to go ahead and pop this up using some Scotch foam tape. Before I place that down, I wanted to make sure that I would have a nice even surface for the inside of my card. So I have again used the bottom portion that I had cut off of that sentiment, and I'm just stamping on the inside the word "ever" using again that onyx black ink. There you see I took off the backing for my foam tape, and I'm going to go ahead and center this panel on the front of my card base. Now I wanted something a little bit extra. I wanted to pull in some of that yellow from the center of the flowers, so I grabbed some baker's twine. Here I've got my piercing tool from We Are Memory Keepers, and I just made a hole there at the fold line of my card, and I'm going to use a needle to push my baker's twine through. And then I'll measure that out and go ahead and tie that in a bow. I'm going to spare you my bow tying skills. I do, however, usually make a knot. and then make the 2 loops for my bows just to make it a little bit easier. So there I've got my bow. I'm going to trim off the excess, and I will go ahead then and grab a glue dot just to place behind the knot there to make sure that it holds nice and firm for me. And that will complete card number 6. For card number 7, I'm going to start by trimming out a background using this Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die, and this measures 3 3/4 by 5 inches. I also grabbed some of my extra MFT pineapple cardstock, and I trimmed out another rectangle measuring 2 3/4 by 4 inches. Next, I grabbed this pink and red pattern paper, and I just trimmed off about 1 inch worth of that. Here I'm taking that yellow rectangle, and I'm going to stamp the sentiment, "Hey there, good looking." I'm going to emboss this, so I'm again going back to that new VersaFine Onyx black ink. And then I will go ahead and heat set this using Simon Says Stamp Fine Detail Clear Embossing Powder. So now I'm going to place the front of my card together. I'm going to add that rectangle for my background using my ATG gun. And then on top of that, I'll add that pink and red stripe. I'll go ahead then trim off the excess, and then this yellow panel I'm going to pop up using some Scotch foam tape, and I'm just going to place that somewhat off to the left hand side. Then finally I'm going to grab a couple of those enamel heart stickers, and I'll place 2 at the top and then 1 at the bottom. For the inside of the card, I'm going with the sentiment, "You are simply the best ever." And again, I'm going to stamp that using that VersaFine Onyx black ink, but I am just going to stamp it, not emboss it this time. I've grabbed that extra piece of the floral pattern paper from the front of the card, and I'll go ahead and add some ATG, and then I'm going to place that along the bottom edge of the inside of my card. And that will complete card number 7. So for card number 8, I'm going to use some of these cut aparts. The lines around the squares were a little bit wonky, so what I ended up doing was just trimming them out to have the sentiments in the center as best as I could, and they ended up being about 1 1/4 inch square. And then I backed them on some MFT pineapple cardstock, and I just went through and trimmed the edges of those with my scissors. I just did it by eye, and it's probably like a 32nd of an inch of a border around, just a little highlight of yellow behind them. And then I went ahead and popped those up here with some foam tape. There you can see I did go ahead and trim that faded red to white paper down to 4 by 5 1/4, and I attached that on the top of one of my gray card bases using my ATG gun. Next, I'm going to place these down, and I went ahead and just centered those using my Misty Grid. I find that that is so handy, not just for lining up stamps, but for when I'm doing smaller detailed things like this. So I'll place the one in the center first, and then measure and place in the center the 2 on either side of that. Next, I'll go ahead and grab some of those enamel heart stickers, and as you'll see, I sort of play and fiddle around with these for a little bit until I get something that I'm happy with. I end up finally having 3 of the enamel heart stickers, and then I go grab the puffy stickers and use some of the 3 much smaller hearts to sort of fill in around that. then here for the inside of the card, I'm using a Nina panel trimmed to 4x5 1/4. And I'm going to stamp the sentiment, "You have a beautiful heart." I'm using the blue ink that came in the card kit. And then I decided I wanted to add this line on either side of it. So here I grabbed some of my Post-it tape, and I'm just going to cover up that sentiment so that I don't get the line stamped all the way across. I went ahead and added that on the inside of my card base, and that will complete card number 8. So for card number 9, I'm sorry, but somehow I lost some of my footage. So I'm going to just talk you through what I did. It's very simple. I took this green square pattern paper and trimmed it down to 4x5 1/4. Then I used some Versamark ink to stamp out the sentiment, "Miss you like crazy." And I went ahead and heat set that with some Recollections gold embossing powder. Here I'm going to go ahead and attach that to the top of a A2 size white card base. I did use score tape behind that because since it was a paper, even though this was a thicker paper, it had a little bit of warping from the heat embossing, so that way I'm able to get a nice tight stick and I don't have very much of that warping at all. Here I'm again going back to these heart stickers. I used one from the puffy sticker collection, actually 2. I used a smaller sort of teal green color that was one of the puffy hearts as well, and then some of the enamels in the same sort of teal green color as well as the light blue. And just again fiddled around with that until I was happy with the layout. Then for the inside of the card, I again went ahead and used Versamark ink and went with the sentiment, "Let's catch up soon," and heat embossed that using the Recollections gold embossing powder. I used a leftover stripe of that pattern paper, attached that along the side, and that completes card number 9. For card number 10, I'm going to trim out a background from this pink and red striped paper, and I'll attach that to the top of my card base. This measures 4x5 1/4. And then I've got 2 leftover pieces I'm going to use to create a horizontal stripe. I've got that pink floral and grid paper that I loved so much, as well as some leftover stripes that are it's more red and pink, so it's kind of mimics the background a little bit. So I've just placed those down there using my ATG gun. I'll go ahead and trim off the excess. And then for my sentiment, I'm going to go with "You have a beautiful, amazing heart." So I'm stamping out "You have a beautiful heart" using the VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And then to add the amazing, I'm going to use the sticker that came in with those puffy stickers. It was a little tricky there because of the way the flourish on the M and the G worked out, but eventually I was able to make it readable enough. For the inside, I went with the sentiment "I love you," and I got that by doing a little bit more stamp surgery. The stamp that says "I love your kind," I just trimmed off the R and kind and then stamped out "I love you." And then I wanted to use some of these pretty florals, but without the cups. So I just strategically placed those so they would be on either corner of the bottom of my panel there. And again, I stamped these using the VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I'll go ahead then and attach that panel to the inside of my card base. And that will complete card number 10. Here is a quick look back at the cards from today. You'll find additional photos as well as a full list of supplies at my blog post, linked in the description below. If you enjoyed the video, please leave me a comment or a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.